Yay, oh yay, notice is hereby given. On Tuesday the 5th of September next, Moreton Railway will be open for business.
Warwickshire's borders have changed over time, and now to its northwest is the county of the West Midlands, which includes Birmingham, which was once part of the county. I have used the old Warwickshire map as it was at the time of the early railways. I have not gone into detail for Birmingham, which will be a video in the future. One thing that Warwickshire has that previously discussed counties do not is branch lines to 18 collieries. Unlike Leicestershire, it doesn't have a railway dedicated to the collection of ore, so as each colliery closed, it took the siding with it rather than a whole railway line. The county became a through route very early. How you define a city is arguable, and Birmingham could be described as England's largest city, where London is just a conurbation and a collection of the cities of London, Westminster and 31 other boroughs. It should be noted that Birmingham was the second city to reach a population of 1 million, overtaking Liverpool and Manchester in 1951. However, connecting London and Birmingham's growth was a necessity, and then further railway progress became focused on Birmingham, heading in all directions. Our history begins with the Stratford and Moreton Tramway, which opened in July 1826, which carried limestone, farm produce and coal from the Black Country from Moreton in Marsh across the Stour and into Stratford at the Canal Basin. 10 years later, a branch to Shipston on Stour was constructed, with an intermediate station at Longdon Road. The 4-mile-long Warrington and Newington Railway, which connected to both directions of the Liverpool and Manchester, was absorbed by the Grand Junction Railway in 1837. Engineered by George Stephenson and Joseph Locke, it arrived into Vauxhall Station in Birmingham on the 4th of July 1837. Robert Stephenson engineered the London and Birmingham Railway, which was opened in stages, the northern section with stations at Rugby and Coventry for first-class passengers and Brandon and Hampton for second class, opening fully on the 17th of September 1838. The delay had been due to the difficult to complete 2,500 yard Kilsby Tunnel. The London and Birmingham terminated at Curzon Street, which the Grand Junction extended into over a 28-arch viaduct across the River Rere. Curzon Street was simply named Birmingham until 1852. In 1839, Vauxhall became a goods station. The Birmingham and Derby Junction Railway connected Derby to Hampton in Arden, engineered by Robert Stephenson and crossing the 19-arch Anchor Viaduct, now the Grade 2 listed Bolehall Viaduct, just south of Tamworth. Passengers would then travel to London or Birmingham. In 1840, the Midland Counties Railway from Trent Junction via Leicester terminated at Rugby. Their passengers would then travel to London. In both cases, the Midland Counties and the Birmingham and Derby Junction were charged exorbitant fees to use Rugby and Hampton. From Gloucester came the Birmingham and Gloucester Railway via Cheltenham, Droitwich and Bromsgrove. The railway temporarily terminated at Camp Hill. In 1841, the Birmingham and Gloucester extended to Curzon Street. It was a 2-platform station, and although platforms had been extended, it was quickly becoming congested from its supply of trains. The Birmingham and Derby Junction Railway constructed a branch from Whittaker to Lawley Street in 1842 via Forge Mills, later Coles Hill, Water Orton and Castle Bromwich. By 19th century standards, the station was a long way from the town centre, so the Birmingham and Derby constructed a footpath to Curzon Street. The Midland Counties, Birmingham and Gloucester, Birmingham and Derby and the North Midland Railway merged on the 10th of May 1844 to form the Midland Railway. In December, the London and Birmingham constructed a line from Coventry to Milverton via Kenilworth. although in the Warwick district the station was named Leamington. On the 16th of July 1846, the London and Birmingham, Grand Junction and Manchester and Birmingham railways merged to form the London North Western. The London North Western built a line from Rugby to Stafford in 1847 with stations at Shilton, Nuneaton, Polesworth and Tamworth, and a connecting branch at Tamworth to the Midland. The line was designed by an independent Trent Valley Railway who were bought out by the London and Birmingham during construction. Gibbs and Canning opened a colliery and adjacent factory processing clay, which connected to both lines. Their terracotta was world renowned and was used in the facades of London's Natural History Museum and the Royal Albert Hall. 1850 saw the London North Western open a branch from Coventry to Nuneaton via Bedworth. The first stop was Cowden Road, after a long sweeping curve upon which is Spon End Viaduct. The original viaduct partially collapsed in 1857 due to poor workmanship and low quality material. The line was closed for 3 years between Coventry and Cowden Road, eventually reopening in 1860. The new bridge still stands. Later in the year, the Rugby and Stamford line was opened via Market Harbour and completed the following year. Leamington was joined from the west with a branch from Rugby via Birdingbury and Marton in 1851. Lawley Street closed to passengers but is still operational and since 2005 has been a Freightliner terminal. In an effort to prevent congestion getting any worse at Curzon Street, the area was remodelled to mitigate the issue. A line to Wolverhampton made Curzon Street a through station and trains terminated at the unofficially opened Birmingham New Street. Snow Hill opened in 1852 to serve the Great Western from Banbury with stations at Fenny-Compton, Southern Road and Harbury, Leamington, Warwick, Hatton and Solihull. Another Great Western line terminated at Evesham in 1852 and in 1853 went through Honeybourne on the way to Oxford. It was built and owned by the Oxford, Worcester and Wolverhampton Railway, but the Great Western ran trains from the outset. In 1854, Birmingham New Street opened, with the largest single-spanned roof in the world, which it held for 14 years until St Pancras was opened, with 9 platforms on 3 acres of a marshy area known as the Froggery, and required the demolition of 70 houses and a chapel. Upon opening, Curzon Street was closed to passengers. Although the Midland could access the station, turnarounds were difficult and instead they opted to use Camp Hill. The Great Western extended from Snow Hill to Wolverhampton, and Leamington Spa opened a new station named Avenue. Everything on the map within the dotted square will be the subject of another video, as I cannot fit all the detail in here that I wish. In 1858 the Midland extended from Barnt Green to Redditch. Stratford's first station was provided by the Great Western from Honeybourne in 1859. The station was on Sanctus Street. To the north, another Great Western connection from Hatton came to Stratford, initially reaching Wilmcote in 1860, and an exchange spur was created at the northern end of the Great Western to meet the Midland at Bordsley Junction. There had been a station here on the 14th of October 1852 to allow some interchange of carriages from the Royal Train from the upper and lower roads, and was dismantled once the train departed. In 1861 the 2 Stratford stations were connected, and now that a through route was available, Stratford's Sanctus Street station closed. The Nuneaton to Hinckley line opened. The connection to Leicester followed in 1864, and this forms part of the cross-country route today. In 1863 Sutton Coalfield opened at the end of a branch from the Grand Junction Railway. John Nowell's colliery started in 1855 and created a branch to the newly formed Whittaker to Nuneaton line in 1864. It renamed itself Haunchwood Colliery in the 1880s. Evesham was reached from Redditch in 1866 via Harvington and Alcester on the Midland Railway. It was named the Evesham Loop and continued south to Ashchurch. In 1871, the newly formed Stratford-upon-Avon and Midland Junction Railway joined Towcester in Northampton to Kyneton. The company's raison d'etre was to transport iron ore to South Wales and was formed of three companies: the East and West Junction Railway, the Evesham, Redditch and Stratford-upon-Avon Railway, and the Stratford-upon-Avon, Towcester and Midland Junction Railway. Near Atherstone on the Trent Valley Railway, a tramway on the downside was added to Baddesley and Birch Coppice collieries. The 46-year-old Moreton Tramway was taken over by the Great Western in 1872 when it was owned by the Oxford, Worcester and Wolverhampton Railway. It was still being horse-drawn as Parliament had forbidden the use of locomotives. When the Stratford to Honeybourne line opened in 1859, it took most of the traffic away. Nonetheless, it enjoyed a goods operation for another 100 years with some passenger journeys. In July 1873, the Stratford-on-Avon and Midland Junction extended into Stratford with stations at Ettington and Stratford Old Town. In August, the Midland and London North Western joint line opened from Nuneaton to Ashby via Coalville, giving access to Leicestershire's coalfields. In 1874, the Harborne line, created for commuter use, was opened. At its peak, it was providing 30 trains each way daily. Griff Clara Colliery joined on the Nuneaton to Coventry branch in 1876. In April, the Birmingham West Suburban line opened as a single line from Lifford to Granville Street Wharf. Like many railways in Warwickshire, it was independently owned but controlled and operated by the Midland. The Great Western's Alcester Railway opened in September as a single line with a single locomotive, with the engine shed at Midland-controlled Alcester and not Beerley. The Stockingford branch opened in December with Annesley Colliery. The branch would give access to the main line and the canal. The east to north spur from Tamworth to Derby at Whittaker Junction closed in 1877, and the spur at Tamworth joining the London North Western to the Midland was removed in 1878. The Midland opened a triangular branch at Water Orton in 1879 as the Sutton Park line heading northwest to Walsall. The route provided, and still continues to, a strategic avoiding route of Birmingham New Street. The Stratford-on-Avon and Midland Junction Railway joined Stratford to the Midland at Broome Junction. In 1880, the London North Western created a small branch close to the city as part of the expansion of Windsor Street Gasworks with its own station. Later the site would build the world's two largest gas holders at the time and modernise production. The gas holders remained in use until 2012 when they were painted in the colours of local team Aston Villa. Another avoidance line was added by the London North Western at the Stetchford to Aston line, which cut across Netchells Park Road and surrounding streets. At Tamworth, a spur providing west to north access was created between the Midland and London North Western in 1883, and the Harbury Cement Works, which joined the Great Western. The London North Western extended their Sutton Coalfield branch to Four Oaks and onward to Lichfield in 1884. The curve it sat on was the subject of a rail disaster in 1955 when an express from Bristol to York derailed at excessive speed, colliding with the station and killing 17. A Coventry avoiding line was added from Berkswell to Kenilworth. Cadbury Works opened a loop branch at Bourneville connecting to the West Suburban line. In 1885, a better branch for Baddesley Colliery was added to the Up, Derby and Hampton line. Both ends continue to be used. Due to congestion at Rugby, where access across the main line was proving unsafe, the Rugby and Stamford from Market Harborough was given an overbridge direct into their platform at Rugby. The Chase line, which ran through Cannock Chase, opened in 1889 by the London North Western between Perry Bar and Soho Junction, allowing an alternative route into Birmingham bypassing Aston. Lifford Coal Company opened a siding in 1892 near Cadbury Works. The Great Western opened a station at Stretton-on-Foss on the old Moreton Tramway. Nuneaton Colliery's Tunnel Pit opened a siding onto the Stockingford branch in 1894. It was named for its close proximity to a railway tunnel between Arley and Philongley. The Great Western sent a branch from Kingswood to Henley and Arden. The branch was started 30 years earlier, but funding prevented its earlier completion, so a new company built it, eventually handing over to the Great Western in 1900. Griff Colliery joined the London North Western south of Nuneaton in 1895. The same year saw the Weedon to Leamington branch from the London North Western extending from Daventry. The line was single track with passing loops at 5 of the 6 stations. The main source of traffic on the line was Southern Cement. Newdigate Colliery joined the Nuneaton Coventry line in 1896 and Kingsbury Colliery opened in 1897 on the secondary branch to Baddesley. The London extension of the Manchester, Sheffield and Lincolnshire Railway passed through Rugby and was opened in March 1899 as the Great Central Railway. For more detail on this line, see my Great Central Railway video. The Falls Hill Railway joined the Nuneaton Coventry line in 1901 to serve Webster's Brickworks. It was extended in 1905 to serve Courtaulds Factory and Coventry Ordnance Works. Arley Colliery joined the Nuneaton Whittaker line in 1902 and Kingswood changed its name to Lapworth to prevent confusion with the station of the same name in Surrey. In 1904 in Stratford, an additional stop opened as Evesham Road Crossing Halt, which was unstaffed. Great Western explained that there was no halt word in English at the time, so the French word was adopted. The misspelling was adjusted in 1905 to deal with the anti-French feeling at the time. Quite what its purpose was with stations either side is not explained, though it was served by rail motors and was near to the racecourse, and this may have been a convenient place to exit the train. A similar arrangement existed on Nottingham's Trent Junction just before the opening of Trent Station. Ettington Limestone Quarry joined the Stratford-on-Avon and Midland Junction Railway in 1906. It had a narrow gauge working and the overburden was much higher than the standard gauge, suggesting tipping was in order. See my Ironstone Quarry video part 1 from 0214 to explain how ironstone quarrying worked. The Falls Hill Railway was extended to meet the demand for ordnance and would meet the future Coventry Loop. The railway always used steam until closure. In 1906, the Great Western Honeybourne line from Gloucester opened, passing through the Cotswolds and running onto the older line into Stratford. The following year saw the Cape Hill Brewery join the Harborne branch line. It forms part of the Mitchells and Butler Brewery of Smethwick, who merged with Bass in 1961 and subsequently Coors in 2002, with production switching to Burton-on-Trent. In July 1908, the North Warwickshire line, also known as the Shakespeare Line, was a new suburban railway from Beerley to Birmingham, with stations at Wootton Wawen, Henley and Arden, Shirley and Yardley Wood. The line does not pass through North Warwickshire but is believed to be named after the local hunt. Henley Station was moved from the branch line to the North Warwickshire, which still stands. Shortly after, in July 1909, Moore Street Station opened to relieve other stations of their burden. The Snow Hill Tunnel would be expensive to double track, so Moore Street was built before the tunnel to alleviate Snow Hill traffic. Coventry Gasworks built a siding to the Nuneaton Coventry line to serve their 40-acre site, which also gave access to the Coventry Canal. Opposite the gasworks was Coventry Colliery, which joined the branch in 1911. Its production was badly affected by the First World War, but by the start of the Second, it was producing 1 million tonnes a year. In 1914, the Coventry Loop was constructed to relieve congestion from Nuneaton goods traffic. There were no passenger services on the loop except a handful of specials. On the West Suburban Railway, Austin Works opened in 1916 on a disused printing works near the village of Longbridge. Herbert Austin acquired a further 8 acres as part of the war effort, producing armoured cars, aircraft parts, shells and artillery pieces, as well as military vehicles and a workforce of over 20,000. After the war, Austin went into receivership before turning the company around and making inexpensive small cars. Both Ettington Limestone and Evesham Road Crossing Halt were closed. The Henley in Arden branch closed in 1917. With access to both the Whittaker avoiding loop and the junction itself, Hams Hall Power Station's construction commenced in 1920 with its own branch siding. The first of 3 power stations did not fire up until 1929. Avon Bridge Power Station also fired up with 2 3-megawatt turbines from British Thomson Hudson in Rugby. Bromsgrove Tubes, acquiring the bankrupt Bromsgrove Ironworks, opened a siding in 1920. In 1922, Nuneaton Colliery closed. Fort Dunlop was expanding rapidly from inception in 1917 and connected to the railway network. The Edge Hill Light Railway connected to the Stratford-on-Avon and Midland Junction at Kyneton 2 years earlier and started operations. It was out of use by 1926. More power stations for a growing county. The Central Electricity Board was formed in 1926 to connect the 122 most efficient power stations in the country. Longford Power Station near Bedworth commenced building in 1926, was operational in 1928 and connected to the railway in 1929. It joined the network of other power stations by connecting directly to Hams, Hall and Leicester in 1932. Stratford-upon-Avon Racecourse platform opened on 6 May 1933. The station was only for flat race season and was very basic. Although platforms were longer than the standard 150 foot for halts, it was able to accommodate 8-car trains and was 555 feet in length. No other provisions such as toilets, waiting rooms and staff accommodation was supplied. The Harborne branch, despite its early popularity, was shortened as far as the Cape Hill Brewery in 1934, though it did continue as a good service into the 1960s. As the Midland Line from Derby to Hampton had been built to provide customers access to Birmingham, this route was now well in use, so the branch from Whitaker to Hampton was withdrawn from service in 1935 to both passengers and goods. The line had been reduced to a parliamentary service in 1877 and closed as a wartime measure in 1917. Following a bridge failure in Packington, it was withdrawn, though the northern end became a useful siding for wagons needing repair and the southern end a minor siding. MOD Longmarston opened in 1940. Its purpose was to store Army Engineers resources in a series of structures of varying sizes and a small airfield. At the end of the war, the 455-acre site was used as a German POW camp, and following peace, the Polish Resettlement Corps. The last Poles left when the camp closed in 1974. The site is now occupied by Porterbrook, who lease trains to railway companies, but here on site they test the rolling stock in a controlled environment. The Camp Hill line closed in 1941 and all stations between Camp Hill and Lifford closed, but the route remained. West Midland Trains plan to reopen it and the stations, including the delightfully named Pineapple Road, but the date keeps moving, August 2025 at the time of recording. The MOD also took over the Edge Hill Light Railway and developed it into a central ammunition depot and a Royal Pioneer Corps camp. Today, as the 2,200-acre Defence Munitions Kyneton, it stores more than 60% of the entire MOD's munitions. In 1942, Hams Hill Power Station developed further railway yards within their site. As mentioned in other videos, the 1923 grouping and the 1948 nationalisation does not affect this map, so the origins of the railways as they close can be seen. In 1949, following a wartime closure, the Stratford-upon-Avon and Midland Junction Railway from Broome Junction to Stratford closed, utilising the Stratford Old Town Station as the terminus. During the Second World War, a temporary factory of the Maudsley Motor Company was set up near Great Elm, and workers from the bombed-out Coventry factory travelled on the Bearley to Alcester Great Western branch, which had already shown its underusage. It ran through sparsely populated countryside and closed in 1951. In 1952, the Stratford-upon-Avon and Midland Junction Railway became obsolete, recording 3 passenger bookings per day. The line closed west of Stratford up to Kyneton, where access to the Great Western route remained. It included the closure of Stratford Old Town, but not all of the track was lifted, allowing future use for British Rail. Griff Colliery closed in 1955. Austin Works removed their siding in 1956, having amalgamated with Morris in 1952. British Motor Corporation favoured the road and ditched the difficult procedure required to cross the main line to access the tall and locomotive sheds. Braunston and Willoughby closed on the Great Central in 1957, as did Shilton on the Trent Valley. Annesley Colliery closed in 1959, as did the Stockingford branch it sat on. Marton and Birdingbury stations on the Rugby and Leamington line closed. In 1960, British Rail added a spur just south of the old Stratford Racecourse platform and accessed the as yet unlifted track of the Stratford and Midland Junction Railway, which allowed freight to continue to use the line until the Oxfordshire ironstone fields were exhausted and would have aided the removal of track. Griff Clara Colliery closed. Honeybourne Junction lost the route to Cheltenham, and the entire line of the old Stratford and Morton tramway was closed. The Nuneaton avoiding line from Whittaker to Hinckley was removed in 1961. Midlands branch to Rugby closed on the 1st of January 1962. Glasgow Works double-ended siding at Tamworth closed. The Evesham Loop closed from Evesham to Redditch. Cape Hill Brewery severed from the railway and the branch to Harborne closed in 1963. Midland Railway spur at Tamworth closed, making two very distinct railways of high and low level lines. The Daventry line to Leamington closed except to serve Southern Cement. In 1964, Fenny Compton Station closed. Dormill Colliery opened in 1965. It was Britain's biggest coal producer and one of Europe's largest. In 2008, it beat a 13-year record set by a mine in North Yorkshire and excavated 3.25 million tonnes from a 5-metre thick seam of the Warwickshire coalfield. It closed in 2013 following a major fire. Milverton and Leamington Avenue closed and its neighbour Avon Bridge Power Station. The Stratford and Midland Junction to Towcester closed. Bedworth Station closed. British Rail spur at Stratford Racecourse was removed with its track. The Rugby and Stamford line closed in 1966. Southern Cement became the only user of track east of Leamington. The Great Central closed all its lines south of Rugby. Birmingham's original station, Curzon Street, was closed. Haunchwood Colliery closed in 1967. They had supplied coal to Northamptonshire and London, and more specifically the Neasden Metropolitan Power Station, the hospitals of the city of Birmingham, and 12 wagons a week to tube sheet, flange and pipe fitting manufacturer Alexander Comley. Longford Power Station closed. In 1968, the west to north junction at Hatton was removed. The Stratford-upon-Avon Racecourse platform closed. Arley Colliery closed. Closures continued. Kingsbury Colliery closed and an oil terminal opened opposite. Birch Coppice Colliery closed. The double-ended branch split, giving Baddesley their own branch. The Berkswell to Kenilworth Loop closed. The Great Central north of Rugby to Loughborough closed. Honeybourne Station closed. Harbury Cement siding closed in 1970. The Ashby and Nuneaton joint line closed in 1971. Coventry Gasworks closed in 1972, followed by the Falls Hill Railway. Hams Hill Power Station closed in 1975. In 1976, soon after the West Midlands Metropolitan County took control of Birmingham Airport, it opened a railway station. The airport was once home to the world's first commercial maglev system, which ran from the station to the airport. The same year saw the closure of the Great Western branch from Honeybourne to Stratford, except the line to MOD Long Marston. Cadbury's removed their siding from the National Rail network. Birmingham's goods station Windsor Street was closed in 1980. Today it is a self-storage site begging to become apartments. Honeybourne Station reopened on the 22nd of May 1981. It had closed due to a loss of freight services which it so depended upon before the Second World War. There was strong revenue from ironstone in the 1960s, but by 1967 had no staff and closed 2 years later. House building in the area picked up in the late 1970s. Passenger numbers continue to double per decade. In 2019, it had more than 66,000 customers and was the 66th station to reopen since 1966. In February 1982, Newdigate Colliery ceased production due to a lack of workable coal reserves. In June 1966, it had become the first colliery to produce 7,000 tonnes from a single coalface. When Southern Cement closed its siding in 1985, everything else closed as far back as Leamington. Southern continued to operate, but by road. Baddesley Colliery and its branch closed in 1989, followed by Coventry Colliery. In 1994, Bromford Tubes removed their siding. In 2004, the MOD departed Long Marston. In 2005, the end of the branch to Birch Coppice Colliery was resurrected as a business park with a £15 million rail connection. Door Mill Colliery closed in 2013. Fort Dunlop closed in 2014. Porterbrook took over Long Marston. The precise reopening date for the Camp Hill line is unclear, but at the time of recording it was August 2025. Historically, this line was the final approach of the Birmingham and Gloucester Railway to Curzon Street. It was later absorbed into the Midland Railway and diverted to Birmingham New Street. The line was closed to passengers in the 1940s and reserved for freight only, but had been regraded as a primary route of the Birmingham West Suburban Railway. The line was named Camp Hill after its original terminus. Precise dates are helpful because they can also give us a delivery date of HS2, which currently stands at between 2029 and 2033. Crossrail was supposed to be delivered in 2018, and only a small amount of its delays were down to the COVID pandemic and was opened officially in May 2022 as the Elizabeth line. With such a delay, I'm going for worst case scenario and logic by stating HS2 will open to Euston by 2040. Thank you for watching. It takes a huge amount of research and time to compile these monthly videos. If I can ask for 3 things, it would be for you to like, subscribe, and if possible, buy me a coffee from the links in my description. See you soon.